Okay, so for those of you who don't know, this is a Scientific Literature Society. We meet every week on Friday, and we just discuss some of the latest breakthroughs in science. And today we're having a seminar on how to get a summer internship by someone who's overly qualified in the matter. This is Isadora, and she did an internship last summer at MIT. So, welcome.
All right. Thank you everybody that came. I hope that my presentation will help you guys, and if you guys have any questions, we can do like a quick, Q&A, and my email will be at the end of the presentation. My name is Isadora, and today I'm going to be talking about how to apply and how to get a summer research internship. All right, first thing is, what is a summer research internship? A summer research internship for undergraduates is usually known as an REU. An REU is like sponsored by the NIH, but people use it for like any type of, use that name for any type of research experience for undergraduate students. So an REU provides funding for students to do research, and that includes free housing, free airplane, and a weekly stipend, and sometimes food, which is really nice. So in my experience, I had free housing, free like airplane, free like Uber from the airplane to like the dorm. I had a weekly stipend that added up to $5,600, which to me was like a lot of money for 9 weeks. I had some meals paid, but also a $400 food stipend on top of that, which I thought was really cool. So one big thing about like a summer research internship is that you're gonna work with a graduate student or a postdoc, or a professor investigator, which is the person that owns the lab, the professor that owns the lab, and you're gonna be developing a research project. For the most part, they will give you a project and they'll kind of like guide you through and teach you things. At least that was my personal experience, but some REUs, you might come up with your project, but it's like not that many. You're gonna spend 40 hours a week doing research, and it's usually between 8 to 10 weeks. It depends on the one that you get in. And right here, I have a picture of my first night at MIT, and that was the view that we had in this dorm right here. This river is the Charles River that divides Boston and New England, I believe that's the city that MIT says. And it was cool because it was free, so that was the best part. Yeah. So why should you apply to a recent internship? I mean, there's the money, and you get to go to like a cool place for free, so that's pretty cool. But you also gain a lot of research experience, especially if in the school that you go to, there's a specific research topic that you're interested, and no one really explores that. That's a great opportunity to like try that out. It also helps you if you're interested in going to graduate school for research, because you're going to be working basically as a graduate student. So if you're trying to decide what you want to do for the future, that's a way to know. And one big thing, and that's why it's like stood out to me the most, is network. You're going to meet a lot of people from a lot of different places that have a lot of different skills that they can help you in a lot of ways. My experience, because the MIT internship was like prestigious, there's a lot of people from like Ivy Leagues and stuff, so it was a really good way to network with them. Another thing is, you're going to become a competitive applicant, because if you get into those RUs, it means that you work really hard to get there. The acceptance rate is between 1% and 15%, which is really, really low. So on paper, you're gonna look really good if you're applying to med school or any other type of like higher education institution, something like that. And right here, I have a picture of my first day in lab at the biological engineering department. And the view I have is of the STATA buildings, which is a place that computer science people do their computer science things. I don't know what they do, but yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the program that I applied. The program that I applied, the name is MSRP, which stands for MIT Summer Research Program. And the program that I applied, you can be any major. it's not only STEM, there are like people that are communication majors, English majors, engineering, a lot of engineering people. I was in neuroscience, just chemistry, bio, just, and there's about 60 people in that year, which was 2021. And right here, I have the only picture in front of like the dome, which is really famous in movies. Those people right there, they were members of my pod. So one thing that they did was, because there's so many people in that cohort, they divided us in smaller groups to make sure like everyone had friends, which I thought was nice. And they also had, so those two people, they were graduate students and they're our mentors, and they made sure that we're happy and like we had food and things like that, and that we were having a good experience in our lab, because sometimes, you know, that happens. And right here is my acceptance email, and I was really happy. So, yeah. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the lab that I joined. So after I got accepted, I was matched to a lab of my choice, and I didn't really have that much research experience, like at all, in what they're doing. I took like one like cell molec class, and I was like, this is cool, I can do this. So it was pretty tough. I had to spend lots and lots of hours practicing things, and because of COVID, I didn't really have pipetting skills and all that stuff, and they taught me everything, and I gained a lot of independence as a researcher because I stayed so long like doing research. So what I was looking at is the CTCF binding domain cohesion and how it controls gene expression. And I know it sounds like a lot of words, but I have this cable right here that will help me kind of explain a little bit better what CTCF and what cohesion like are. So this right here is like DNA, right? Let's pretend. So one way that our genes, like the gene expression, can be controlled is through loops, right? You have a promoter, an enhancer, and maybe the promoter is like far away from the enhancer, and then a loop is formed so they can interact and something can be expressed. So that's basically what I was looking at. This right here would be the cohesin. Cohesin's like a ring that goes like this, and it makes sure that those two parts of the DNA interact with each other, and that's basically it. So the environment that we were using was a nervous cell. So I learned how to differentiate a cell from an embryonic stem cell into a neuron, which is also really cool. During the 9 weeks, we wrote an abstract, a research proposal, graduate school personal statement, and a poster. And then we presented our posters to faculty at MIT. And this right here is my poster. If anyone wants to look at it later, I have a link, because they create a profile for every intern with their information and their research. So last summer was really fun. I networked, but also like made so many friends. So this is like everybody, all the 60-ish people. And we did a lot of fun things. I always made sure that people were able to also enjoy going to Boston and getting to know the city and stuff. So this right here is, we were eating in front of the Charles River, and it looked really, really pretty. This was our ice cream social. We had a boat party at the end of the program to kind of celebrate that everyone, you know, survived and stuff. And we also tried to celebrate everyone's birthday, which was really fun. So I also got to network with faculty as well. One thing that they did was they made sure that twice a week we're meeting different people, and we had the opportunity to kind of like talk to them one-on-one. We got an MIT email, so we got to email like people affiliated with MIT. And this Dr. David Page is one of my favorite people that I met there. He's known for mapping the Y chromosome, and he was really cool to talk to. He gave me a lot of advice about life, so that was cool. And my second favorite person that I met was Dr. John Cohn. And even though his research is a little bit out of like the scope of my knowledge, because it's about AI and stuff like that, he also connected us with IBM, because there's a lot of computer science majors, and I know some people that got jobs out of that, which is really cool. So the application process. Applications usually open in November, December, and they're due in different dates. My application for this program was due in January 31st last year, but this year it was due January 10th. So it usually varies, but you have to be a non-graduating undergraduate, so a junior, that's like the latest you can be to be able to apply and get. There are other internships that you can do after you're a senior, but they're a little bit different. The application process is a little bit different. You have to have about like 3.0 GPA, unless you have like a lot of research experience. They overlook that, but that's kind of the minimum. You usually have to write one-person essay or like smaller essays, and you have to have 1 to 3 letters of recommendation. Send your CV/resume with the things that you did, and an unofficial transcript showing that your GPA and the classes that you took. So for me, the first time that I applied, I was a freshman, and I got rejected from like every single program, like ever, because I applied to so many, and I had no research experience, but I just wanted to see if I could get somewhere. And then the second time around, I was like, okay, let me like think a little bit more about like what I'm writing, and I feel like that's what made a difference. And I also reached out to faculty to join, and I joined one lab that gave me a lot of like experience working with Dr. Craddock in research. But I had about like 6-7 months of experience, so it wasn't like anything. I didn't go to a conference. I didn't like a lot of people I was with there did all those like crazy things, and I hadn't done any of it. But I knew how to sell myself, and I think that's a huge thing for anything or any job that you apply to. You just have to know how to like convince people that you're good, right? And I'll be talking a little bit more about how I did that. So the letters of recommendation, for this program I had to submit 3. So I submitted a letter of recommendation with the person I did research with, a letter of recommendation with someone that I did an unpaid internship for about a year in an open source scientific journal, Dr. Cochin. I don't know if you guys know him. He's in the neuroscience faculty. He's part of it. And my Gen Chem professor that I used to go to his office hours and talk about research with. I did well in the class, but I think it was probably because I talked to him about like, doing research. That maybe he also student, because they usually want to see letters from people you're doing research with, just to show that you can do it when you're in that environment. But there are other ways to like work around it. It's just harder. You just have to put a lot more effort into like your personal statement. So some like general tips: start early, and not just like when the application opens, but early as like if you're a freshman, do it, and if you get rejected, do sophomore year. If you get rejected, do junior year. That's kind of what I did, and it worked out for me. And let your recommenders know ahead of time, because it saves a lot of stress. One thing that you could do is even way before the application's open, you can, if you have a specific professor that you're like, oh, I think he might write me a good letter of rec, you can start talking to them about research and about, oh, I want to apply to this program, and then they're gonna like keep that in mind. And make sure, and one thing I learned is, one way to ask a professor for a letter of rec is by asking, do you think you'd feel comfortable writing me a strong letter of recommendation? If they say no, move on to someone that would say yes. Because a lot of professors might write you a letter of rec, but it might not be strong. So just gotta make sure. This one is also really big. You have to make sure you're a good fit for that school, because they're gonna receive a lot of applicants that have a similar background, a similar GPA. So one way to set yourself apart is to make sure that you know what that school is about, and and I use that in my favor. I knew their like saying, which was like drinking water from a fire hose, which means like it's a lot, like you get overwhelmed easily. So I kind of wrote about it to show, oh, see, I'm such a good fit. And also like know the faculty because they ask for people that you want to work with. So just make sure that the research you want to do matches the research that they offer, because otherwise you're not going to get in, even if you're like really, your application's really good. Be passionate and specific about your research interests, and don't be generic. Make sure that if they give you the ability to talk about yourself, do that and try to stand out. So I'll show a little bit of how I use those tips for my own application. This is a question that I pulled from that specific application. A lot of them have questions like this, like what are your career goals? Why do you want to go to that school? How are you going to contribute to society? So one thing that I did to be specific, I was like, okay, MIT has a lot of research with X-ray crystallography, and I want to do that, and I know about it. So then I wrote about that, which lets them know that like I put thought into it. Be unique, like the way you see science is different from everyone else. So make sure you talk about it. So I talked about just my background and how I didn't like science growing up, and I only started liking science as a college student. But it wasn't because it was boring, but because I just couldn't understand it. And then I talked about science communication and connected back to the community. And the last one is, I mean, if you're really passionate for science, they're gonna see it. So make sure you can like write about it. And I talked about my personal blog I have where I combine scientific topics with creative writing. And I put the link to it there. And I talked about like how I do comedy pieces about like proteins and cell communication and things like that. And I thought it was like fun. So this other question, I also think it's like such a good way to let them know that you really need the opportunity. And a lot of like places have questions like this: describe any challenges you had, and then they make sure it's like economic, social, educational. So you can just talk about whatever you want. And one thing is like, oh, do you need money? And do you like research, but you don't get paid research at your institution? Talk about it. You don't have access to research that you're passionate about it. Talk about it. Do you want to go to graduate school and you don't have the right resources and things like that? And are a member of an underrepresented community and how that affected your journey as a scientist? You can talk about any of those, and you work really well for this, as long as you're being, honest, and it's your experience. So this resource right here was like one of the best things I've seen for those specific programs. It's provided by the Scripps Research Institute. I don't know if you guys heard, and they also provide a summer research internship, but it's really hard to get in. And in this specific program, you apply to it and they match you with a graduate school mentor or a postdoc mentor that will read through every single one of your applications one by one. And I used this resource to apply for this year, and I got into 3 internships, which was a lot in my opinion, because I applied to just 5. And I haven't heard back from the other 2, but I think I got rejected. That's okay. And they also help you make your list of internships. They help you ask for professors for a letter of rec. They do workshops where you meet other students that got into the program and you help each other through it. It's really nice. And another thing is that because not a lot of people apply, they accepted everybody that applied for the semester. So everybody got help, which was nice. I'm not sure if they're gonna be providing this program next year. I think they will, but if you guys wanna like talk to them, they're really cool people. So some extra resources. Right here, I have some databases because sometimes people say, oh, I can't find, like internships that I can go to. Here's one. This one is the one from our school's page that I thought was pretty helpful, and this one is the one from like the government. Reddit I love Reddit. You can ask anything. They know everything. The subreddit Aberu is super helpful, and you can ask people questions. You can also see they talk about their stats. They talk about their like GPA, years of research, and programs they're applying, programs they got rejected. So it's a really good resource. And this one, if you're having trouble writing a personal statement, I think this is a really good resource. And that's all. If any of you need any help with anything, you can email me, ask questions whenever, and I'm so happy to help. And I hope you guys enjoy. If you guys have any questions right now, let me know.
So do we have any questions? Anyone?
I'll add a couple things. One, I'm picking brain of people who are researching with us from Cornell right now. So I already started talking with them. Do they have a program? She's saying that yes. So I'm trying to create a link between, internship for summer in Cornell. So they are here researching. So if you want to hang around, they are doing for B research. Some of you know, some of you don't know. And you create a link with these grad students. They'll go back and tell them that, hey, I met with this person who is really gung ho. Maybe we should get them for summer internship. That's a live resume there. That's one thing so we have another thing. If anybody is serious about internships, since I was recently approached by Novartis, where I have one of my students going this summer for paid internship, there were specific questions they asked me to write a letter of recommendation for, right? I can share them with you if you are really serious and really interested. So you can use those questions for which I have to respond. If you use them in your personal statement or design your resume based on that. Because if these things are important for them, well, customize your resume to tell why you are important. Before they ask a professor, they already know through you. And that's something I'm willing to share. And I got some questions from Novartis, but I created my own questions and gave it to my student. She had to answer those questions to me before I answered those questions to Novartis. So you may want to see those questions if you are interested. I can share that with you. Because ultimately, if somebody goes out and gets internships, come back and tells a story, it makes Noah look good. And getting paid vacation for 10 weeks is not shabby either, right? I think that probably will be boldening your application for any program for the future. So there are some resources available on campus. You just have to knock on the door. So I think she was able to successfully do it. But you are all here because you have some interest in it, I think. So don't just let this idea die. You are wrong in saying that applications are January to March. So most of them are November to December. Novartis, they had a deadline of December 1st. So some of them are, I'm not saying you are wrong.
No, okay, it's fine.
But you said
They're-
it's usually beginning of the year. They do way before. So if you want to go for following summer, you start thinking about approaching professors in the beginning of fall. Hey, I'm thinking of applying for internship next summer. Would you be willing to? So before you approach a professor, make sure that professor knows enough about you. Say, as she said, I can write a generic letter. Letter. That's a reference letter. Recommendation letter means get the job done. So to be able to write one, we need to know enough about you. If you're just a grade maker, who cares? Grade is not alone. Oh, by the way, I know I'm a professor here.
What subject do you teach?
What do you think?
Maybe.
Look at the color of my skin. I'm just kidding.
No.
Maybe what?
I'm thinking neuroscience.
Neuroscience?
Maybe chemistry.
Take a guess. Chemistry, yes.
Orgo.
Orgo. Wait a minute. You went from neuroscience to chemistry to orgo. How rude. As I said, just as I said, if you need any resources, any information that you want, if I have it and if I keep it with me, it's useless. But I'm not just gonna throw it at everyone who wants to, because come by, I'll give it to you. I'm not just gonna distribute away, because this is a key information, because everyone writes some, and if you don't show that deep interest in it, it's not meaning. See, our help is useless. You have to sell yourself. I can give you sneaky roads, but the aspect is, if she wants to go back to MIT, if she stunk last summer, she wouldn't be going back again. Obviously she didn't. She's going back. MIT again? Yeah. So you have impressed them. So the hard work is on you. The thing is, we can make a little bit easier. So make sure that get all the resources, but nobody wants you unless you want them. You want to go to internship, it's your work. But how you concoct your application is something that you can get help from some of us. I don't know, chances are, if you ask any professor, they might have had that experience. You just didn't talk to them. Right? I just was picking brain with these grad students, oh yeah, we have programs. So I'm thinking maybe if anybody's interested in animals, animal behavior, ants, bees. Right now we have a live person here from Cornell. There's chemistry, research experience at undergrad in biology, data science, all kinds of stuff, neuroscience, all available. You just have to explore. Okay, it's just the beginning. This should be just the beginning. And I believe next fall we'll have a couple more presentations, because she's going to come back and give a talk again. I won't hold your grade.
Why? No.
Until you come back and give a second talk.
Okay.
I probably will have someone from Novartis, again as a requirement, to give a talk. Because unless you listen to the experience, the cool thing they did, you wouldn't be enticed to it. You know what I mean? It feels good. Otherwise, just like, myth. When you have somebody comes from other places and gives talk about it, you will know that that could have been you. So it's not too much work to plan. I don't think anybody requires you to have a whole lot of experience, right? But there are experiences available. There are experiences available on this campus. Do a little bit of research and then boom, you can use that in your resume. There is a difference between resume and CV. CV, curriculum vitae, means you are writing everything you did, but don't write about working at McDonald's. So that doesn't show any special skill, right? But resume means it's a particular job. This is not a job, it's a skill set. Right? Every skill set you have learned, start creating a running curriculum vitae. Something you accomplished, some innovative thing you did, write it down. List it. You may not use it, but you have a list. By the time you finished undergrad, you may have 10 pages of all cool things you did. But you might have forgotten half of them if you didn't write them down. It's a good idea to create a running CV. Resume is something that you customize for a job, because you delete whatever is irrelevant. But CV means everything you did. Say for in a course you did something unique, and you contributed a unique paper and professor said there was a great work. Write that down. That may be useful for you at a later date. One thing important is the moment you recognize that you have to go somewhere or you want to go somewhere, start bonding with the professor. That person has to be your lawyer, because they will plead your case, right? They have to write a very strong letter. So if you just say, oh, you know my grades, can you write one? Yeah, I'll write one. Yeah, I'll write one. That's not good enough. Make sense? So make sure that you create a interaction, something that professor, I can give you the questions they ask. you know, if I have to write answers to those questions, can you imagine that you need to have been interacted on those aspects with that professor? Otherwise, what am I gonna write? So we'll just leave blank on those aspects. So if you are curious, I can tell you what are those questions that Novartis asked me about a student. I can share that with you. Okay? But again, there are people who are from Cornell right now here doing research all weekend. You can hang around, pick their brain. One of them is what? Computer science?
Computer science,
PhD. Electrical engineering PhD. Other person is in behavioral science. So very interesting. They just happen to be on campus right now. So hang around, watch some bees, do cool stuff, and listen to them. There are a lot of things you can learn from. I'm willing to link you up. So now that my email address is with them, so I'm gonna keep on picking their brain. So.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Schambeg. Do we have any other questions? No. All right. Well, thank you all for coming.
Appreciate it.